Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back. I hope you all had a good break after the last session. Um, Welcome to our final session for today, and indeed the final session of this year's Digital Fundraising Summit. It has been a total blast. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Aura Ruth Rother, and I am the recently appointed Head of Marketing at Charity Digital. It's been my great pleasure to be part of this digital summit and also to join and be part of such an amazing company. So just before handing over to Jake Lambert from Fresh Egg, I would just like to run you through a couple of house rules. Just to let you know that the session is being recorded and the recording slides and resources will be made available on demand for the next 30 days post-event and will also be shared with you at the end of this week. Closed captions are available and we'll shortly share in the link how to enable these. During the webinar, please do ask lots of questions so that Jay can address them at the end of the presentation. And do feel free to share any other comments, experience, or top tips during in the live chat. So why don't you now open the live chat to the right of the screen, introduce yourselves, and let us know where you're from. Finally, if you encounter any sound or image issues, please do let us know in the chat, and we will do our best to try and rectify and help you through it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jake. He is the head of conversion services at the marketing agency Fresh Egg. And he will be showing and speaking to us about how charities can better understand their support and needs and what they need to do in order to be able to meet them and as a result, maximize their fundraising. Over to you, Jake.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to, be here. Thank you for having me. I'm going to talk to you today about 5 things you can do to maximize your donation funnel. Hopefully today being the last session, quite nice. Maybe you can jump on some of these this afternoon, maybe a bit more likely tomorrow, next week, but hopefully some things can get you talking about it and actually thinking about how you can make the most of your donation funnel itself. As I said, my name is Jake Lambert. I'm the head of conversion services at Fresh Egg. What does that mean, head of conversion services? So I look after our conversion rate optimization and our qualitative research. And essentially, here to help you get the most out of your users on the website itself. Here at Fresh Egg, we are very proud to work with a number of charities, help generate well over 7 figures worth of additional donations, sponsorships, everything in between for various charities. You can see some of them on the screen there as well. Yeah, very happy to be talking here today and letting you know how you can make the most of your donation funnel itself. So why are we here? Well, very, very familiar story. Tough market, budgets tight for consumers and for businesses alike. You can see 5 billion donation drop last year, jumped on by a lot of news agencies. Text donations themselves to charity fell by more than a quarter last year. Figures show that. And essentially this means consumers, businesses are being squeezed, donations are falling itself. Excuse me. So with donations falling itself, actually it's quite a scary place to be for charities. A lot of them are looking for ways how they can raise donations that don't cost as much. You have to spend a lot of money to raise awareness for your charity itself. And if they're coming onto the website, you're trying to get them to donate as much as possible. So that's really where we're at. And the way I see it, you kind of got 2 different ways you can go. Budgets are falling, spending less, awareness falls, and you can either soak that up and go with it, or you can make that funnel work harder so that you can then either reinvest into trying to get awareness up to where it was, or carry on with the great work that you're doing. And hopefully that all comes into one another. There's some scary figures there, which do make it difficult to do all the wonderful work that you do itself. So where do you start? Well, where do I start with that? The first point that I'm going to go through should be very, very obvious to a lot of you, but actually is so typical for it to be overlooked itself. And that is talk to your users. Actually go and talk to them, pick up the phone, or just understand their needs themselves. What I mean by this, so most charities can rely on some analytics data. GA4, very, very popular, might have thrown a bit of a spanner in the works with the data that you have, having to migrate to that. And it gives a great indication of where opportunity lies within the funnel itself, within the website. You can get a view of what's actually going on. But the question I always ask is, do you know why these things are happening? We rely on analytics and we fall back onto it all the time, but actually sometimes you do know why. The example about cost of living crisis that we've just spoken through is having an impact there, but you might also see you're having an increase in abandonment rate as you go through that funnel itself. And the way I like to think about it is think of a petulant child themselves, where they're just sitting in the back of the car going, why? So you might say, our donations have fallen. Okay, why? Okay, well, when I'm looking through, there's two different reasons. We're seeing a fall in our organic traffic, and we can contribute that to our fall in spend on advertising or TV or campaigns or any awareness that we're doing. You can answer that question. But actually, when they're on the website, we're seeing less donate as well. Okay, why? And what you do is when you start asking those questions, why, you'd be like, okay, they're dropping off at this point. Okay, why? And then you go, oh, you start thinking and hypothesizing reasons why without actually knowing the reason why. And that's so common. And a lot of it is because we might understand a lot of the motivations behind our users, but we're not keeping a clear gauge on how that is actually changing. So what I would recommend is talk to them and ask them. It can be as easy as picking up the phone for your current customers if you have that data itself. Us at Fresh Egg, we utilize a lot of user testing to get that insight across a wide range of audiences, and I'd highly recommend you do it too. You can test across those who do donate, those who used to donate, those who have never donated before, those who are donating with other charities, larger charities, smaller charities, whatever. But really dig into why users are performing the way they are, why they have changed, and what's actually going through their heads and the specific reasons why. Different forms of user testing. The one in the middle, moderated, tends to be the least used now, except for in special circumstances where you need to actually be moderated in a room with a person. Everything tends to be remote now. I guess the one good thing coming out of COVID is that everyone's very comfortable with the remote part. And I guess the two core functions, moderated with a person and unmoderated, where you set it themselves and you allow people to get on with it. Benefits of both. Unmoderated tends to be cheaper and quicker, but moderated you do tend to find you see better insight itself. But what I really implore you to do is utilize these research methods themselves. It's just one of many to get to the crux of why, and you can really say, okay, actually motivation is dipping at certain points in our journey itself, and we need to address that. And that's why users are dropping off at certain points within the funnel. So add that qualitative element to your quantitative data analysis to really get the most out of it. And you can set these up very, very quickly on platforms such as usertesting.com, which is one that we use, or send out an email saying you're conducting some research to your current base. Would anyone be willing? You'd be surprised at the amount of time that people are willing to give up to actually engage with you and give you some information for that. So that's the first reason I'd really, really implore you to look at as soon as you can when you start getting those insights from your analytics platforms, actually understand why, so you can address that on the website itself. Second point that I want to get through, build and maintain an emotional connection. Again, emotional connection, it sounds very intuitive, but it can be very much overlooked as you go through. And we spend a lot of time trying to build that connection, particularly at the start, but we don't maintain it very well. You can see here some very, very good creative examples. Spend thousands trying to build an emotional connection through advertising, through landing pages, through our socials, through the messaging that we put out there. In so many different forms, we get that emotional connection right, and we really drill in why it's so important to donate. And that really comes across when you look at these images, really powerful images. Again, copy in all different various states, depending on what you're trying to do, really drills at home the need for donate and the actual suffering that goes on, around that and why you need to donate to these causes. And it's really credible that we do that, and we do that very, very well. And that drives the traffic in, or the need in when it's needed. But we then greet potential donators with a very standard form. A couple of examples here. The one on the right with donation amount is a typical form, and you'll see this layout almost across the board for our funnels itself. And we lose that emotional connection. We completely lose it as they go through, and it becomes a very transactional state of affair. So you build up this real sense of need, and then you go, all right, transaction. And as soon as a user hits a hurdle, they lose the motivation to actually continue. And I know, I guess some people will be saying our best practice form is this, and it's there and it works and great. But once everyone starts doing best practice, that just becomes average. You need to keep pushing how far you can go and really engaging your users as they go through the form itself. The donation funnel is seen as just that, a funnel, whereas actually our users who come on the website, potential donators, it's not just an isolated part of their journey. There's a full journey. You need to have a consistent message throughout that. And I think a stat that really brings this to life is 1 in 5 donators do so primarily because it makes them feel good. And that's primarily. You might think that number's a little bit low. I found it very, very high because it's a primary reason. I think it will be a reason for most donators that it makes them feel good, and that's a good side effect. But actually the primary reason is relatively selfish in a very good way, that it makes them feel good. They donate because it makes them feel good. And that doesn't stop at the donation funnel itself. So tell your story and tell it throughout. Use imagery, use copy, and make sure that users are emotionally engaged as they go through your funnel itself. And there's a good example here from UNICEF where they do that. And they say the impact of the donation, utilize that imagery as they're actually at the payment step, and start talking about gift aid there. So very, very important to tell that story and make sure that you keep telling it. It doesn't stop when you hit the funnel and you just plod through a form and hope that they get through it okay. Third reason, test your default values. So what are you asking your potential donators for? So did a quick Google, top 3 by SEO, by no means the top 3 in general, but the top 3 that appeared for Google when I was looking at water-related charities. And they all ask for a different monthly amount by default. So you can see £5 default chosen, £20, £10. Do you ask 2, 5, 10 on your monthly? 5, 10, 20? Do you add another option of 40, other amount? There's so many unknowns here of what actually is optimum, what should you be asking your users for? And as the world changes, inflation goes up, the optimum amount is going to change over time itself. I would ask yourselves, when was the last time that you actually looked at the amounts that you're asking your users for? And we've done some work on this and provide some examples. So this is from a whole series of experiments that we ran with the RSPCA on optimizing just this area here. We wanted to test what the impact of increasing those amounts were, what were the optimums for it, introducing quite large numbers at the end, how do we frame it? And we saw actually really, really good results. So overall, just under a 19% increase in donation conversion rate, 7% increase in average donation for one-off, and 11.5% for monthly giving. And what you can see the default values on the right-hand side there. So before 6, 10, 12 for monthly, 15, 25, 40. Keeping that first one in place, actually what happens if we go 12, 30, 25, 100? And actually what we're doing here, this was again a series, but the overall impact is we're raising the bar to see what impact that has itself. And it might not be the case that raising your default values is the optimum. It might be the case that actually you're asking for too much and you're putting users off. So maybe you want to lower that and you'll see the impact there. But without testing, you won't know your optimum without trialing it through. But also, we put a relatively large, in comparison, 25 and 100 right at the end there. And that utilizes what's known as the decoy effect. or the anchoring effect as well, where you put a larger number at the end, and then actually it makes everything else seem a bit better. Very, very common if you walk into a watch store, for example, a Rolex, and you see a £100,000 Rolex in the middle of the store. It's the first thing you see. You're never going to buy it, but actually you're now anchored to that £100,000 number, and everything else seems a little bit more manageable. I know the Economist magazine do this very well with the decoy effect itself, where I think if you buy a paper magazine subscription, it's the same price as if you buy paper and digital for them. So that paper, no one ever buys that. Why would you ever? But it just makes a decision a little bit easier for the user from there, rather than going, oh, which one am I going to buy? Go from there. So again, those types of tactics to look at can actually help make your donation funnel work harder and let users move through from there. But yeah, very good results on that one. The fourth one that I want to talk you through is about nudging to regular giving. And this, again, is an example that I want to show you through. There's quite a few different examples that we have, but letting your users know how much of a difference a regular donation actually makes can have a huge effect. So we've run this experiment across quite a few different charities itself, and we see 17% uplift in monthly donations with no impact on single giving itself. It doesn't need to be really forceful, just raising awareness of the impact that monthly has. And this works because you'll have three different types of users that come on this screen that want to donate. Those who are always going to give a single donation, and that's fine. They can go through, it's not stopping them from doing that, but it's just confirming some of the impact that you have. Those who are doing monthly, they won't see this. Any regular giving, this appears when you switch to single. So actually they won't see it here. And then you have those in the middle who aren't quite sure what's going to have the best impact, what they're going to look to do, what they can actually get through at that point. And for those users, that indecision just creates chaos and they leave. They don't know what they want and they go, and they stumble, and then they end up not donating itself, or they default to the smallest amount that they go through, when actually they would have been prepared to donate more and make a bigger difference to your charity itself. I think the best real world example of this I can think of is when you're scrolling through Netflix, for example, and how often do we just scroll and scroll and scroll looking for something to watch? We don't really know what to watch. We just know we want to watch something, and we go through, and we suffer from choice paralysis. So there's a few different effects there, and then you just give up and you put something that you would have watched on Netflix anyway on terrestrial TV. And this can work for the same users in that way of just helping them make up their mind of what's going to have the most impact at that point. The final one, and it comes back to some of the things that we've been talking about anyway, is about showing your impact. So here, just a few examples picking out of some I guess, good examples of letting your donators know the impact that their donation will have. And it sounds very, very simple, but it's so often overlooked. And you can anchor this to actually what you ask them for and test that out within the testing your default values part. But just saying, okay, £39, this is exactly what it could provide. This is the impact that you have. And doing this throughout the funnel itself. We do often see that you will have bar charts and breakdowns outside of the funnel itself that will then say, okay, this is how much your donation goes to this cause, for example. But at the point of giving, actually, if you can change the mindset of the user from I'm giving £10, I'm giving £20, I'm giving £30 to I'm actually potentially buying this or whatever it is for your charity itself, and I'm having this impact on these users or these in need, that actually makes the decision a lot easier. No one wants to think about the pain of giving money away, but they want to think about the impact that they're having, and bringing that to the forefront of the user's mind will actually have a huge impact as they go through. So just to wrap up and put it all on one screen for you, the 5 things you can do to maximize your donation funnel, if not this afternoon, tomorrow, next week, but definitely things to get the ball rolling for. Talk to your users, talk to those who do donate with you, set up criteria and user tests for those who donate with other charities and find out why as well, because you can learn a lot across the whole base. Talk to those who used to donate and don't anymore, what would bring them back. And this can not only help with your donation funnel, but all activities everywhere. Create, which we're very good at, but sustain an emotional connection throughout the whole journey itself. Test those default values, find out what is the optimum for your potential donators themselves, but also as costs go up, as inflation goes up, make sure you're regularly testing those to make sure, you're driving the most value possible for yourselves and for the causes that you represent, but also just so that they fit within the market as well. There's going to come a point where you need to raise the values because you need to have the impact that you want to have, and testing that to make sure that it's not going to have a drastically negative impact is very, very worthwhile. Encourage a regular commitment where you can. It doesn't put off those who are looking for one-off donations, but can have a real big impact on your monthly or any regular giving that you have. And finally, show your impact. And it comes back to that emotional connection point. But again, don't make users think about the pain, think about the impact that they're having and go from there. And thank you very much. That's everything around. Hopefully you can make the most of your donation funnel after this. I think we'll open now for questions. Oh, classic on mute.
I was off, but now I'm on again. Hello. Thank you very much, Jake. That was really, really short, sweet, succinct, and to the point. It was a fascinating and enlightening session on how to maximize your donation funnel. We have a couple of questions. If I could just dive into those, please. One, what are the other reasons to give if the primary reason is because it feels good? If you want to tell some kind of emotional story, what are the other reasons to give if the primary reason is because it feels good?
Oh, there are several reasons. I know a very popular one as well is because it's had an impact on a family member, and you want to prevent that pain for others. That's a very, very good example that we see within there. It's not all primary selfish reasons of I want this, but actually I've come into a windfall, for example. We see that very, very often with any lottery winnings, for example, and they want to have that really good, impact and share that with those who are in need. So I guess it's coming from actually not, it's only 20% that the primary reason was that, what I'm calling a good selfish reason itself. But there's a whole host of different reasons, primarily, I guess, to create the impact that they want and see a better world. That's the big one.
Thank you very much. Another question that's come through: where and how and what should you include to create the carry through of the emotion into a bespoke donation form? Because a lot of the forms are just downloadable, and for a lot of people it's much easier just to take a template. So how do you carry that emotion through so that it doesn't suddenly dive? As you keep on talking about keeping the connection. So what would be the best way, and how would you go about doing it that doesn't cost an arm and a leg and is easy to implement?
Yes, the two areas I start with to look at is copy and imagery, where you can. At the top of your donation funnel, as users go through, maintain the imagery that you already use throughout the website. You don't need to go and do a whole new shoot and get that imagery and go through. You can actually just maintain the same story and have that imagery go through, just so that it maintains that reason and it doesn't look like a whole new journey and as if you're going to a new website. And then copy where you can, where your template allows you, input that copy that lets users know the impact that they're having, but also just reiterates the good work that they're doing to go through. So copy in imagery, and that shouldn't cost the world. And
you're saying that potentially in the donation form as well, to make sure that coming back to the impact of what their donation would actually generate and the benefits of that. Absolutely, yeah. At the donation forms, it's going to be one of the biggest hurdles to come through, especially at the point where you've actually got to make that payment itself. So if you can layer that throughout,
it's going to be huge, because that's where you're going to find barriers, and you need to maintain that motivation of your potential donator to actually go through and continue with that purchase. If I haven't got my card on me and Google Pay is not working, I'm either going to leave or I'm going to go and find my wallet. And you want users to choose the latter, rather than, oh, I'll do that later, and then maybe they don't come back around for it.
Fantastic. Another question from Raquel, who says, how do you decide if you need a new donation funnel, contactless or online shopping donation, or just to improve your existing one?
Yes, I guess it's quite funny. We've been discussing rebuild or optimize as well on our side. And for me, if it's technically, if it's not a technical reason or a legal reason, or you just have to do it for you're relaunching your brand and you have to go from there, providing you can optimize, I'd always look to optimize. If you change a million things at once, you're not going to know what actually made the impact, whether that was positive or negative itself. So if it's still functional, I'd go for optimize every single time, providing that you can optimize to a satisfactory degree technically. Oh, sorry, still muted.
Another question from Heather. Do you have examples of what a good donation form with an emotional attachment is? Because many charities are limited in what they can do with website forms. And alongside that is another question that is asking about what Blackboard and what you can do using the Blackboard system.
Yes, so answering the first one, examples, I think some of the bigger players have more flexibility within what they can do. I showed an example of UNICEF there using some copy and imagery. It's always a good point to look at that. But I would say, and whatever donation platform that you're looking at itself, look at where you can customize and then tailor it to your story and your users, because it's very, very common. If we copy everyone else, actually, that might not be the optimal or the story that you want to tell through that. And in terms of specific systems, again, whether that's Blackboard or whoever else, and the examples from there, look at what you can do, speak to whoever, if you have an account manager their side, but also just look through. I don't have any specific examples for individual platforms themselves, but see where you can customize, and then look to do so from there, rather than having a standard form. If you can't customize, you can't customize, and you need to make that emotional state as high as possible as they enter the form, but actually where you can, maintain it.
Thank you. And I think our last question, again, just to remind everybody, if we haven't got to your question, please do feel free to reach out directly to the speaker, either via the chat or at their speaker booth. Last question is from Tash, who asks, what is a good conversion rate of people landing on a donation page to ones that complete a transaction? Is there any industry benchmarking that they can have a look at?
Yes, benchmarking. Everyone loves a good benchmark. We see huge variability throughout all of our different charities. If I was to pick out a number, we did some research, and the average was between 18 and 20% from start to finish, but that varied wildly. And it all depends on, again, the work that you're doing at the beginning. If you're some donation funnels start very, very early, and some start a few steps into the journey itself. So this is a difficulty with benchmarking and spitting out a number, is that if I said 50%, lots of people would panic. But actually, the group of benchmarks from there might start so far down, it's only 2 steps, pay, done, for example, from there. And donation funnels vary in terms of size and what they're doing from there. So I always try to steer clear of benchmarking questions for that reason, because there's the classic, if you took one charity's users and put them on your website, you're not going to have the same conversion rate than if you did with your current users itself. So there's so much that goes into a conversion rate that a benchmark and aiming for a number because it's average or because it's something else. There's so much that goes into it that makes it very, very difficult to maintain.
Thank you very, very much, Jake. And thank you to everybody for being part of attending this session. We've now come to the end of the session. Please, can you rate the session by selecting the stars underneath the session title? And again, just to remind you that the session will be available on demand by the end of the week. Please go and check out our partners booths as well as our very own charity digital booth. In the partners section, we will post the Hubbelow link to that in the chat shortly. Please don't forget to share your thoughts with us on social media, and also, please do join our networking area at using the armchair icon at the top. And now, as we wrap up, thank you very, very much. Thanks, Jake. Thanks to everybody else. Thanks to all our speakers. And as we wrap up in the final day in our 5th annual digital fundraising survey, it's been really, really wonderful to connect with so many of you. And we do hope that you found the summit as educational and as fun as we did. It's been fabulous. You can rate this session and any of the other sessions as well using the stars underneath the session title. All the sessions from today and yesterday, again, will be available on demand by the end of the week and will be live for another 30 days thereafter. We do hope that you've been able to make the best use of our networking area where you can chat with your peers, ask questions to our speakers, and that you were able to visit some of the partner sections to discover more about resources from our partners and from our sponsors and from the various speakers. We would love for you to share your thoughts with us on social media. Please do use the hashtag Charity Digital Summit so that we can. So we look forward to your feedback. Just something very, very quickly. We do love feedback from you as well, so we can look to improve, as that's always important to us. So could you please complete a short survey and let us know what you thought about the sessions from today and from yesterday? We will post the link in the chat. At this moment, and as we come to the end, we would also like to thank our headline sponsor, Salesforce, as well as our gold and silver sponsors, Simba, Give and Gain, GWD, Good with Devices, iRazor, and Public Interest Rate Registry, as well as Reason Digital. We'd also like to thank all our speakers and event media partners who made this event possible. I would also like to thank our behind-the-scenes production team for all their hard work in keeping the sessions flowing, keeping us on point, keeping everybody on track, and for all the pre-work that goes into making this such a seamless process for everybody. Once again, a massive thank you to you all for joining us today, and to all our speakers who have made this event, this free event possible. We had over 600, I believe, people today who joined us live. You have all made this year's Digital Fundraising Summit truly unforgettable for us and hopefully for all of those who participated and joined. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a lovely rest of your day and goodbye until next year. Take care.